Hello, Wineabbers. My name is Jesse Meekum from You Need a Budget. Yes, you do. And this is another Whiteboard Wednesday. We are continuing our streak with reports. Today, we're talking about the income versus expense report. I use it in YNAB's YNAB file. So YNAB the business runs YNAB the software, and I use this and it gets us a profit. This is basically what the fancy people call a P&L. Or if you're not quite as fancy, you would say the whole thing and say profit and loss. In our situation, we don't worry personally about profit and loss, although if we did worry about it, we'd probably behave a little better. We call it the income versus expense report. How much did you bring in? How many expenses did you have? In accounting, there's all sorts of weird things about accrual accounting and when was the expense actually incurred versus when the cash was paid. You can imagine, or maybe you can't, but there are instances where companies could really make their books look really good if they didn't have to recognize expenses when they were incurred, but only when the cash was sent out the door, or if they could recognize revenue when it was earned and not necessarily when the cash came in. Things get weird there. In your situation with the income versus expense report, we are only talking about cash, and that can cause you to have a moment of panic. And I'm going to tell you why that moment of panic is a moment to celebrate, a victorious moment for you in your budgeting career. First, this took me a long time, and this is a mock-up of our income versus expense report. Categories here, inflows or outflows, whatever it may be, but the bottom number is the important one. Income or inflows minus outflows gets you to your net, whatever it may be. Hopefully it's a net inflow, but why do I say hopefully? Because we're conditioned to. When we get to this big red dollar sign here, that means we had a loss, and you would say, oh, why? I'm losing. I thought we were doing really well, but we had this big expense. That may be a moment to celebrate. You may, if you were following Rule 2 and embracing your true expenses, you would be able to stash a little money aside for the vacation. Stash a little money more aside for the vacation. Stash a little more money aside at the beginning of this month for the vacation. And then the vacation hits. And of course you spend more than you actually brought in that month because you've been spending less in all of the prior months throwing the money aside for the vacation. So a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, when you're following Rule 1 and you're really dialed in there and you're setting aside money, breaking up larger, less frequent expenses into monthly amounts, you get these points where you have large bills. Like a lot of people probably, if they've been saving dutifully for the holidays all year long and they get to their actual holiday spending, unless you're weird and you do your holiday spending throughout the entire year, but if you wait until the 23rd of December or so, you would have a big cash outflow in December. Does that mean that you had losses? No. It simply means that the cash that was all piling up along the way finally went out the door and you're totally fine. And that's the point here. In the income versus expense report, you can see in the aggregate kind of how things are going, and you could probably look at the year and say, did we bring in enough for what we sent out the door? Yes, we did, or no, we didn't. Ooh, that might be a problem. So you can see trends in aggregate, but when you're looking month to your cash flow in and out fluctuations, they're going to be a little volatile because your actual life, reality, is also volatile, and your expenses aren't perfectly lined up every month. That's why we have Rule 2 in the first place, to make sure that this doesn't turn into a big nasty trend going onto credit cards, but instead is just one more thing you handle. We'll see you guys next week.